this time, City Council will hold an executive session for the purpose of consulting with city staff regarding the following: pending or contemplated litigation or settlement agreement, and to hold consultation with attorney under Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, as well as personnel matters under Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We anticipate beginning our regular meeting promptly at 2 p.m. At this time, we are in recess. All right, good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock on October 10th of 2023. Council is back in chambers we have recessed to executive session, and we are calling this meeting to order. Once again, thanks for everyone being here today, and again, wishing to wish Mr. McBrayer a happy 31st birthday. Happy birthday today, Mr. McBrayer. We're glad you're with us today. We do not have Mr. Massengale with us. He is absent. He is ill, so he will be at home. He might be watching on the big screen, but he's watching baseball. All right, so at any rate, we're pleased today to have Pastor Josh Stuvey with St. John's United Methodist Church today. Pastor Stuvey, if you'd step forward, if you'd all please stand, remove ball caps if you have one on, and then if you'd remain standing after Pastor Stuvey's prayer for the pledges led by Mayor Pro Tem Patterson Harris.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to invite you to pause with me and find a posture of prayer, and if it's right for you, a moment of reflection. Holy God, we gather in work and service of this city. Ground us in gratitude for the place that we call home, for the people that we call our neighbors, and for our lives that have grown in this place. As we begin today's meeting, I pray for all who have gathered here, and I pray especially for our city staff, council, and mayor who give of themselves in such big ways. Make of us people who listen deeply and ask questions so that we can find right paths forward. Make of us people who lead by serving and serving our neighbors, especially those who are vulnerable, hurting, or go unseen and unheard. Make us aware that hope is present in our city and in this room for what can be the tomorrow of our city. And I pray all of this in the name of God, the Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. If you will remain standing and joining us as we cite the pledge of the American and Texas flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you again, Pastor Stuvey, for being with us today. We very much appreciate it. All right, this time we'll ask for citizen comments, and thank you, Kristen. It looks like we have no citizen comments today, so that will take care of item number 3, and we will now move to agenda item number 4 and 4.1, which are our minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve 4.1. Thank you, Ms. Martinez-Garcia. Thank you, Ms. Joy. All in favor of approval of agenda item 4.1, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. We will now move to our consent agenda, and we have a few items that we'd like to discuss or bring forward as pulls today. We have 5.13, 5.16, 5.17, 5.20, and 5.30. So we'll start with item 5.13, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Item 5.13 is a request to abandon and to close the remaining alleyways and utility easements located within what we call Block 130. It is actually the site of the future downtown Civic Park. Portions of the alley through there have been closed previously, but we have several just remnants and reservations that are left over. Of course, that is city property. It does not carry with it a closure fee, and then it will be replatted once these have been removed and vacated. Purpose, again, is for the eventual downtown Civic Park, and the city departments and the franchise utilities are all in agreement with the closure. The actual utilities have already been moved.
Any questions of Mr. Atkinson on 5.13? All right, 5.16.
Okay, item 5.16 is the second reading of an ordinance regarding how we take care of the wastewater utility. The short version is this. Today, you have your sewer lines in the alley. If a new sewer tap or a replacement sewer tap on an existing property is to be made, the private property owner contacts a plumber who does all of the work from the fence in to the home. And the way the ordinance stands today, the work from the fence to the sewer main, including the tap into the main, can only be done by City of Lubbock crews. We've not always done it that way. Prior to 2006, a qualified licensed plumber could go down to the main and do that work in the right-of-way. This ordinance takes us back to where we were. It does allow qualified licensed plumbers to work within our right-of-way to get down to the sewer main and to do that work. A couple of items of note. One, your wastewater teams have held various public meetings with our local plumbing companies, so they're obviously in support and in favor. Number two, I think this is a benefit to the consumer. There's no longer now that lag or that gap where the plumber's working on one side, we're scheduling a crew to come and work on the other side. And then the third point, we do estimate this to produce about an $800,000 savings to our operations and really repurpose that same level of effort for other repairs.
Ms. Joy.
Happy to see this because it's been a real problem, confusing to our citizens when they have an issue, not knowing which way to go. So I'm really appreciative of this change.
I think we're all agreed on that. Thank you, Ms. Joy. Any other questions on 5.16 of Mr. Atkinson? All right, moving right along to 5.17.
Okay, 5.17 comes to us today on the water side. So the water system operations. This is our ongoing contract and agreement with the United States Geological Survey, USGS, and this is where they will operate on our behalf rain and stream flow gauges. This is beneficial to Lake Allen Henry. It's actually a required portion of that. It is beneficial to the future Lake 7. This is how we account for, obviously, the rainfall. But if you think of all the dollars the city has spent to develop the large outfalls that come into the Canyon Lakes with our developed stormwater, this is how you get credit for doing that. Under this agreement, the USGS will fund just a little bit under $9,000, and the city of Lubbock will fund $108,250. And again, this is from your water fund.
All right, any questions of Mr. Atkinson on 5.17? Ms. Joy?
I heard you say this, but will you please say it again, that the water that we are reclaiming to go into Lake 7, this will monitor that so that we get credit for that water that we're putting in.
Exactly.
Okay, and so I think for Lake 7, well, and even now, but for Lake 7, that's extremely important.
All right, thank you, Ms. Joy. Any other questions on 5.17? All right, moving to 5.20. That's dealing with solid waste and buying Dipsty dumpsters.
Item 5.20 is the annual purchase of dumpsters. That is correct, Mayor. Total estimated purchase this year will be 295 dumpsters. The vast majority of those are our standard 3-yard dumpsters. That's the one you commonly see. 250 of those, 20 of the 2 yards, those are the small rectangular ones. You see them in some of the older neighborhoods. And a small number of the 4s, which are larger, generally going to be behind commercial. 295 total. The price, the 2 yards are $612, 3 yard at $672, and 4 cubic yards at $766. Here's the good news. That is only the slightest change from our prior purchase, our prior contract in 2021. The 2 yards went down by $3. The 3s went up slightly, and the 4s went up $12. So thankfully, that has slowed down. They're all much more expensive than they were in the 2017 contract, but at least it seems like we're close to holding the line on these for this year.
Ms. Choi?
These dumpsters have become an issue. These are the big heavyweight ones that most of the neighborhoods have, but we're also seeing the rollout containers. This doesn't include any of those, is that correct?
That is correct.
Would you just tell people, one, how we determine how many dumpsters someone or some of the residents are entitled to, and number 2, why we're seeing the roll-out containers now?
Glad to do that. The standard ratio on a 3-yard dumpster is 1 dumpster for every 4 homes. Different with the 2s, but for the 3-yard dumpsters, the standard one in the alleys, 1 per every 4. So if there's only 3 houses on a corner, they're going to get 1 for 3, but we carry it forward that way. The other items that you talk about, common term for those is now the carts, the rollout carts. The most predominant use of the rollout carts is in our no alley subdivisions. That's the number 1 driver of what we're doing with the carts. Over the last 2 years, on new development, we have had to put carts out temporarily when we just couldn't get new dumpsters delivered in time. And then as dumpsters come in, you take the carts off. We have a few very unusual situations where you may have one property or house that sits off by itself, and for different reasons, a dumpster is not really the safest way to do that. Some of those have been converted to carts. The dumpsters we have are not going away. There is not a city program where we're going to slowly go through the alleys and take out the dumpsters and, and put the rollout carts in their place. But the no alley subdivisions are becoming more and more prevalent. Most of them are in the design phase, but quite a few are on the ground, and we will see that more and more.
A duplex is 1 home or 2?
Well, it's going to be two dwelling units, so generally that'll count as 2.
Thank you.
Ms. Patterson-Harris?
Thank you. You were speaking, Mr. Jarrett, with regard to the use of the rollouts.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any situations where it is not necessarily the no alley situations, but some difficulties that we've been having getting down and in and out of some alleyways that may be causing us to go in that particular direction?
There has been a limited amount of that. We will do that temporarily. Our franchise utilities are pretty quickly working their way through the city, replacing gas mains, fiber optic lines, things like that. And when they do that, they close an entire alley. And really, there's not a good way to serve them other than putting the dumpsters out on the corners or providing a cart temporarily. So you will see a bit of that. There are some locations in town, there's not many, to where you had a row of homes at front of the street and there wasn't an alley behind them. And at one time, we had dumpsters on the street. We are taking those and putting them back to carts.
Thank you.
And Mr. Atkinson, to that point, we've also been very diligent lately about finding locations where trucks are pulling in and having to back out, and we're basically telling services and customers, especially commercial, we can't do that anymore.
That is correct. On commercial, so Lubbock only uses dumpsters and trucks that pick up from the side. The more common way to pick up commercial is from the front, and we have several good private haulers in town, and that's how they do that. We don't have that. If our trucks have to back out into traffic, we are encouraging them, and eventually we'll just have to cease service. We don't want the trucks doing that. There are also some isolated locations in some of the annexation areas to where the only way to serve would be to drive against traffic with our trucks, and that's also not something that we want to do.
Thank you very much. All right, any other questions on 5.20? All right, we'll move to 5.30, about our vehicle purchasing.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This item is a lot similar to what we have asked you to do the last 2 springs when we pre-purchase vehicles. We come to you with a budget. We tell you that budget is for X number of vehicles, a little over 40 that we did this spring. And then by virtue of that resolution, you authorize the city manager, as we find a vehicle, to be able to immediately contract for that. With the continued delays in receiving vehicles, with what is going on with the auto workers strike and many other things in that supply chain, we now come to you and ask for that same authority with the vehicles that are in your 23-24 budget. So what this means, we have 56 vehicles in the budget at just a hair under $8.5 million. That does include some heavy equipment. And then there are 20 city bus vehicles, and these are not the buses, these are support vehicles, at $1.4 million. The city bus vehicles are all federal funding. The city vehicles are all what's approved in your budget that just went into effect a week ago. We ask you to consider this resolution and really allow us to save some steps and just try to get vehicles as quick as we can get them.
Mr. Atkinson, I guess maybe explain to council, you and I discussed, when a vehicle becomes available, that availability may be for literally 15 minutes
Yes.
or an hour because everyone else is shopping. And so is this essentially giving your staff the authority, it's already budgeted, is there dollars already in the budget, to go ahead and make that decision that, yes, we are going to make that a purchase and that move forward with that so someone else doesn't snap that up?
That is exactly what this does.
All right, I think I asked you to explain that to council, and then I explained that to council. So, all right, thank you for that. Ms. Joy?
Understand these were all in our budget were cash funded, with the exception maybe of what might go in the tax note.
Correct.
Other than that,
They're all cash
they're all
funded.
cash.
Other than that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Atkinson or comments on 5.30? All right, seeing none, I think that handles the ones for discussion. If council has no objection, I would pull those pulls back in and ask for a motion to approve consent agenda 5.1. Sorry, Ms. Martinez Garcia, 5.1 through 5.40. I have a motion to approve of Ms. Martinez Garcia. Thank you, Mr. McBrayer. All in favor of approval of a consent agenda 5.1 through 5.40, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, we will now move to our regular agenda. We'll begin with agenda item 6.1. These are our LCAD nominations. We are considering a resolution to nominate the following board members. The City of Lubbock currently has 5 directors serving on the board. These are all eligible for reappointment. That would be Sonny Garza, Brady Goen, Greg Jones, Bobby McQueen, and Noe Reynolds. Just a little information for council. I know we discussed in executive session, but we were very diligent. Ms. Paz, would you agree and help me with those dates of when we put out requests, news releases, press releases, I should say, and asking through social media means and others to find anyone that's interested in being on this board?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. Our office got with Communication and Marketing, and they helped us distribute a press release on September 15th that highlighted the LCAD board only. And then on September 21st, we re-released our press release encompassing all the boards we were promoting, including LCAD, and they also promoted applying for boards on Twitter. At this time, our office has received 0 applications to serve on this board.
All right, thank you, Ms. Paz. All right, I guess the point is that if anyone is interested in serving on the Central Appraisal District Board, I know that maybe it's just me, but there's a lot of people that complain about the appraisal district, this is an opportunity for you to get involved if you're interested. And so with that, I would ask for a motion to approve agenda item 6.1. Thank you, Ms. Joy. Thank you, Dr. Wilson, on the second. Is there any other discussion or comments on 6.1? All right, all in favor of approval of 6.1, which is the nomination of those 5 aforementioned persons, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, 6.1 carries 6-0. We will now move to 6.2. This is a second reading. We had the public hearing on our last scheduled meeting in September. This is a request. I believe this is the down zone case, if you recall. Is there a motion to approve 6.2? Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Ms. Martinez-Garcia. Is there any questions of staff? We have Ms. Sager available, or any questions or comments or further discussion on 6.2? Ms. Patterson-Harris.
Can we have Ms. Sager come and do her thing? And just so that our minds will be refreshed, those of us who've been away and had it clouded over the past week.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Item 6.2 is Zone Case 3205A. The request is for a zone change from Interstate Highway Commercial to Local Retail District C2. We sent out 19 notifications, receiving no responses. This property is located south of 114th, west of Frankfurt Avenue. An aerial view of the subject property shows residential to the north with a mix of residential and commercial to the southwest and east. Current zoning is Interstate Highway Commercial with additional IHC to the south and otherwise transition to the north, south, and west. Future land use plan designates this property for low-density residential land uses. Some photos of the subject property and surrounding area. Although the future land use map designation is for low-density residential land uses, the C2 zoning is more restrictive than the current IHC zoning. The proposed zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and appropriate in the proposed area and compatible with the surrounding area. Frankfurt Avenue is a minor arterial. 116th Street is a local street. Staff recommended approval of the request. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 7-1, and Council approved first reading by a vote of 5-2.
Thank you, Ms. Sager, for that synopsis. Ms. Patterson-Harris, do you have other questions of Ms. Sager? Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? Ms. Joy.
What was represented to council at the last meeting was that the only ingress and egress would be from Frankfurt. Is that correct?
That's
you
correct.
Recall that?
Yes.
How are we going to guarantee that that in fact is what happens? I know there's a site plan of sorts, but the concern from the neighbor was traffic around that one house that sits there on the end of that block. And I think it's important that if that's represented to us, that be carried out in some manner.
So my understanding, although it shows half of a cul-de-sac dedicated for 117th on this map, that there are not plans to actually complete that or require that pavement to dead end into that cul-de-sac. So with no paving and no street dedication there, the other half of that property would have to be dedicated. They would not be able to have access.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Any other questions of Ms. Sager? Ms. Patterson-Harris?
I just wanted, I didn't notice if the proponent or the citizen who was in opposition, if either of them or both of them are present today.
I know our applicant is here. I don't see any of the other neighboring owners.
Okay. All right.
Would you like to cross-examine the applicant, Ms. Patterson-Harris? All right, any other discussion on 6.2? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of agenda item 6.2, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-1. All right, we will now move to agenda item 6.3. Ms. Sager?
Item 6.3 is Zone Case 3175G, a request for a zone change from restricted local retail C2A to high-density apartment A2. We sent out 30 notifications, receiving 1 in favor, 11 in opposition. This property is located north of Erskine, west of Frankfurt. Here's the response map showing the responses in favor and in opposition. An aerial view of the subject property, and again, this was an outdated aerial view. We have a couple more showing the building permits that have been issued, as well as a Google aerial. Current zoning was C2A. There is adjacent R1 and A2. Future land use plan was designated for low-density residential. Some photos of the subject view and surrounding area. This was a site plan provided by the applicant. Since your last meeting, the applicant has also provided renderings showing how the buildings will look. The future land use map designation is for low-density residential uses. The current C2A zoning does not align with that designation, but the A2 would be appropriate in this location. The A2 is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and compatible with the surrounding area. It does front onto Erskine, which is a principal arterial. Staff recommended approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 4-3 with 1 recusal. And council recommended approval, voted for approval by a vote of 6-1 on the first read.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. All right, as this is a second read, we may have some questions for you. Is there a motion to approve 6.3? Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. McBrayer. Are there questions of Ms. Sager? Ms. Joy, do you have questions, Ms. Sager?
If the opponents are present, they were here at the last meeting that we had. This development concerns me because of all of the R1 that surrounds it. And I guess people need to understand, because I hear this all the time, my realtor said this is R1 and it'll be that. I don't have to worry about it. Those zone changes happen. And if you buy a property that's R1, there's no guarantee that it won't change in the future. So beware of people who tell you that, because there are lots of things going on in this city, lots of development, that sometimes changes that R1, whether you like it or not. So just, this one concerns me.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Any other discussion or comments on 6.3? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the second read of 6.13, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-2. All right, we are now moving to agenda item 6.4. I believe this is the Kimmel Center closure. Right-of-way closure, is that right, Mr. Atkinson?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. Council may recall you did the first reading of this a number of meetings ago. At that time, we had some discussion about the project, various things going on, and we held it off. At your most immediate prior meeting, you had a representative of the applicant. You considered at that point an incentive that was being offered by your downtown tax increment financing zone. We've now put this back on for the second read. We've had a chance to look at it in great detail. There was a concern that if we completely did the vacation and closed the easements and the project did not happen, was that going to put us in a bad spot? And it does not. There's really only one easement left in it. It is a sewer easement, and it only serves that particular property. So it's a dead end if you want to look at it that way. So with that, staff would recommend that we go ahead and do the second read, that you do that. Just as a quick update on the same project, at your last meeting, you heard the applicant's representative talk about their efforts to obtain a building permit. Those efforts are ongoing. At my last check, we were still waiting on a couple of resubmittals from them, but they are making an effort to do that. This will clear the property of any potential encumbrances and is listed as one of their items that is needed for them to move to close.
All right, thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Is there a motion to approve agenda item 6.4? Thank you, Ms. Martinez Garcia. Thank you, Mr. McBrayer. All right, any further discussion, questions, comments on 6.4? All right, all in favor of approval of 6.4, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, 6.4 carries 6-0. All right, we'll now move to 6.5. Council, if you'll recall, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Atkinson, 1 through 9 under 6.5 as were unanimous 7-0 at the time, and I believe 10 was a 6-1. So what I'd propose, if there's no objection, that we go ahead and take 6.5 items 1 through 9 and take that into one inclusive vote, and then pull out section 10, if that's okay. Is everybody good with that? All right, is there a motion to approve 6.5, agenda item 6.5, sections 1 through 9? Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Ms. Martinez Garcia. Are there any other questions or comments on 1 through 9? Okay, all in favor of approval of agenda item 6.5, sections 1 through 9, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 5-1. Sorry, my math with the missing Mr. Massengill. All right, I'll move to section 10. This is separate item. Is there a motion to approve 6.5, section 10? Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Ms. Martinez Garcia. All right, we have section 10 in front of us now on a section 10, 6.5, section 10. All right, motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on 6.5, section 10? Yes.
Could we get Ms. Sager back up?
Yes, Ms. Sager.
There are 3 different slides on this item related to our downtown with a zoning map showing those changes as well.
All right, while they're pulling that up, Mr. McBrayer, you have a question, Ms. Sager?
Yeah, Ms. Sager, if I recall this correctly, this was just reducing the zoning district, different zoning districts down to a smaller number because there was very little difference between some of them.
Correct.
It's just simplifying.
Yes.
As basic.
Yes.
Is that- okay.
From 6 mixed-use districts down to 4.
To 4.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson-Harris. All right, now, any other questions of Ms. Sager? I think she pulled that up for us. Mr. McBrayer, any other questions? All right. I have a motion and a second on 6.5, Section 10. All in favor of approval of that section, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries 5-1. All right, thank you very much, everyone. It is 2:35 on October 10th, and we are adjourned.